jingle,
win.
Ashley.
Long
I
as
love
you're
that.
happy, you're always gonna grin.
Oh, bye,
You
thank
get
you.
out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose, never gonna win. Long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in.
Oh my goodness, we've got Peter in the house. How the devil are you, sir?
G'day from down under.
Down
I'm
under.
well.
You're in Australia, is that right?
I am, and the very southern end of Australia too, down the South Australia.
So where's that for those of us that aren't very good?
There's a big bight in the lower coast. It's
Yep.
sort of on one side of that.
Fantastic. So I have actually been to Australia. What an amazing country. I was lucky enough to go to the Gold Coast. So did Noosa, which was absolutely tremendous. I'd love to go back. But it's a little bit of a trek for us. Hang on a minute. You're in Australia. What time is it, sir?
Oh, it's now 9 o'clock in the
Oh,
evening.
it's
Actually, really good time.
nearly time for bed. Oh, awesome.
No. I'm a bit of a night owl, I have to say.
Oh, that's good news for this show. So thank you very much indeed. So for those people that don't know you, Peter Nicholls, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Right. Well, I guess I call myself a life enjoyment mentor, and the business name I use is Australia's People Gardener, Growing Better People. So I think I'm probably the only one in the world with either of those titles. So, and I have a background in recreation planning, where I learned a lot about what people are like when they really enjoy themselves. They come alive as a person. And then at the weekend, and then at work, they go, yeah, now I've got to go to work. And then they come home. And I found there's something about that, who we are when we enjoy ourselves. So when I left work, I became a life enjoyment mentor. And I have to say, the first project I got was to help a team of professionals who are burning out. And I thought, I have no idea how I'm going to help people with burnout, but I did stuff on Enjoy Being You from a book, and it went brilliantly. So I said, that's what I got to do. So I've been doing that now for probably a bit over 20 years. I was 25 years as a recreation planner. So it's about 50 years of experience working with people enjoy themselves. So that's probably a good start anyway, where we go. But I say the Australian People Gardener title comes from my parks and recreation background. That's where I learned a lot about the links between parks and people, the interconnection of people and parks. And you come home when you go to a park. And you know, in COVID, one of the best things, and the UK said it, the UK said, I stay sane when I'm out in the park, because the park was their prison escape yard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's been my background. So that started to convince people parks are such an important part of who we are. So I grow better people, help them flourish and grow and blossom.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. So in Australia, you've got loads of open space and stuff, haven't you? And that's where we need to be, out in nature.
Have a look at the picture behind me. Some good Australiana paintings. I love them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So going out to the park. So you create these spaces when you were working parks and recreation grounds. Is that right?
It is really. It's I think the best way I can explain it is, in the people go for 4 different activities to the one park, and they all come home saying they had a quality experience. That's the job of a recreation parks planner.
Fantastic. And now you're putting all of that experience into good use and helping people just get more enjoyment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And does this flow to the workplace? Because as you can tell, I enjoy doing this, right? And I enjoy my job, I enjoy helping people, and I enjoy everything that I do. So I get an awful lot of enjoyment. But you do hear that, I don't know what the stats are, but I read somewhere that 80% of employed people hate their job.
And I'll take that one step further. Of those people, they leave about 80% of themselves at the office door when they go to work. They just take through to what they need, what the boss needs, what the job specialist says. All the other stuff that they know are good are left outside. So I think that the two would probably go together.
Okay. So what type of people do you like to work with? Who's going to benefit most by working with you, Peter?
people certainly at the second half of life I guess partly because I'm in that second half of life, but I believe that the stuff I talk about doesn't make a lot of sense to the experienced life. I don't really help, say, a person leaving school who's going out into the workforce. People who have experienced life from anything from 30, 40, 50 onwards are starting to say life means a lot more than just simply preparing to get a job and all those things. I'm starting to understand who I am. And I find that's an important bit. But because they're going through some sort of major transition, particularly transition to retirement is a big one, then, what does enjoyment of life mean when I lose the identity of being a worker, which is a huge issue, and you don't.
Okay, so you say second half of life, but you actually mean retirement.
No, I don't. No, I'd like to take it from about 50 on, because what I'm trying to do is to help people make a smooth transition right through, almost a seamless transition, whereby they don't have this stop-start, now I've finished work, now what I'm going to do.
Sure.
But by the time you turn 50, instead of having a midlife crisis, you have a midlife awakening.
Yeah.
This is who I am, and this is the stuff I'm good at. I want to keep doing what I'm good at for the rest of my life, not necessarily for pay.
No, fantastic. I love that. And it's pretty radical. You cannot see, I promise you, my floor is a complete mess of paperwork. All right. It's got lots of different piles because I'm going through my pensions, because I've had lots of jobs throughout my life. I've got all these different pensions. So what I'm doing is working out the best place to put them, etc. So that is something that I'm doing at the moment. Mm-hmm. And obviously looking at pensions, I'm thinking of my second half of life. So really, perfectly placed for me to talk to you today to make sure that I get the right enjoyment, because I love what I do today, but I might want to, I've got grandchildren, so I want to spend some more time with them. My wife doesn't work. I want to spend a little bit more time with her and maybe do a bit of traveling. And it's all those sorts of things that you can help me with. Is that right?
It is. And I'd want to make two direct points straight away. That if the traditional time to quit work is around 60 to 65, but we're all mostly likely to keep living till anything up to 90. So it's almost as long as your working life. So whereby that first 6 months or a year is a nice little sabbatical, you might say, you've got to think beyond what's going to keep your brain ticking for the rest of these 60 years to maintain a long life. And for instance, in your case, I would say now tweak what you're good at.
Yeah.
What you're good at now, you might not want to do it chatting to people like me on the program like this, but what you do is good, is going to keep you excited for many years to come, and you just might want to do it in a different way when you decide you've had enough of doing what you're doing now.
No, but this is the thing. I cannot see myself retiring. I started my working life as a chef, and the hours and the hard work in a hot, sweaty kitchen. I wouldn't want to be doing that today in my age, but definitely not into retirement sort of age. But I can see me doing this as a lifestyle, a bit like yourself, Peter, because something tells me that you are past retirement age, and so you're doing not to help other people predominantly, but also, like you say, to keep your brain ticking and to keep you active, to give you a purpose.
It is.
Yeah,
I have a lot of one-liners which I throw at people all the time. We want to continue a strong growth mindset. We want to stay hungry to grow, stay curious to learn, and stay gently challenged.
Yeah, I love that. All of those are key, because you see some people your age that are just sat waiting for the inevitable. They do Sudoku, they watch Homes Under the Hammer or some other TV program in the afternoon and go to bridge club or something, and they're just doing the basics. And you're saying you need to be stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing things a little bit differently.
A little bit, yes. It's it's keeping mentally active in some way, being curious and wondering what's going on. The sense of awe and wonder is itself a marvelous thing. But my concern is, and I learned a lot about this from ministers of religion who at one stage up to some years ago were told to quit at 65. Well, you can imagine if you're that your whole vocation in life is to preach the gospel or whatever, and suddenly you've got to stop. You can imagine quite a few ministers died within months, even before. Wow. The ones who got on were the ones who picked up on things that they really enjoyed doing as a minister, and they kept being involved in this part or that part without the responsibility of being in a parish. And now they still go into their 80s. You need to have that want to desire to keep on living. Otherwise, there's a very risk of boredom, and boredom can have its effects.
Yeah, no, I love what you just said about the awe and wonder. So I've got a little 4-year-old grandson, and everything to him is awe and wonder. And I'd like to see myself in him, because that's the way I am. And I love chatting to different people, finding out different things. Talking of which, say hello to Pavel. So he's watching. He lives just up the road from me. So he's watching you down under today. So did you transition like you help people, or did you sort of like stop working one day and thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How did you get into being a people gardener? I love that term.
To be honest, I did rather stop. I was in my job as a recreation planner. It was a government job, and eventually that came to an end. I was about 62 at the time, and I can recall sitting at home by myself thinking, nobody's going to phone me today. I could sit here and no one could give a damn. I'm going to have to get off my backside and go out and do something. And that was when I got this recall to say, Peter, you've written a lovely book called Enjoy Being You, which, by the way, is still popular. Even though it's out of print, it's still available on ebook. And that was all about my reflections on my career in recreation planning. And somebody said, could you run a workshop for a team of burnt out people? They were talking about going overseas more than once a week. Literally scary stuff. And I thought, goodness gracious, I know nothing about burnout. What am I going to do? And they said, just run a workshop based on your book. So I did. And without going into it, it was a brilliant success. And they just suddenly saw their lives differently. They loved what they did, but they wanted to do it under very different circumstances. And it was so from there, and I thought, that's what I got to do. I've got to tweak what I'm good at to help people, not just at the weekend, but throughout what they do in their life.
Yeah,
and that was where the transition occurred.
Tweak what you're good at. That is brilliant. So this book, how did that come about?
Well, I've always been keen on writing. I was about 14 when I wrote match reports for my hockey club. I've always loved writing. And I suppose what I decided when I was getting towards the end of my career, to put a whole lot of one-page thoughts down. And I self-published it. It was simply called Enjoy Being You, What Leisure Can Do to Bring Out the Real You. And it sold very well, actually. I had a publisher picked it up and promoted it very well. But then, of course, like all books, it sort of faded. Then came COVID. And I put a few quotes on LinkedIn, good old LinkedIn. I put a few quotes from Enjoy Being You on LinkedIn. And they went nuts about it. Yes, that's what I want to do. I want to enjoy being me. I've been hammered down by the work ethic and everything for all the lines. I want to be me. So the Enjoy Being You theme came to life again. And I've had a resurgence of interest in what I do ever since COVID came. If there's anything good come out of COVID, certainly it's benefited this new outlook on what life's all about.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing, wasn't it? We were stuck indoors. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. We were worried about the future, and it just makes you think. It's some of these life events, the death of a loved one or a parent or something like that, that sort of like makes you think of your own immortality. And I guess we had an awful lot of thoughts going through COVID. So so you're bringing the enjoyment back to everybody.
And you remember at that time too, nobody knew what was going to happen, and nobody had the answers. Nobody in the world, none of the bosses were just as confused as the staff. We're all on the same level, trying to figure out what the hell do I do now. And so everyone was suddenly back to thinking for themselves for the first time, for many people, for the first time for years.
And so how do you actually work with somebody? Is it one-to-one? Is it a group? How do you do that?
Yeah, look, I was doing group workshops for quite a number of years up till before COVID, actually a while before COVID. And then, of course, COVID started. But I now do mainly an in-depth one-on-one with people where I work through over a period of 3 sessions over 3 weeks. I give them some homework to do as a result, and fun homework. By the way, it's an enjoyable program. It's not hard work. If you want to enjoy being yourself, we want to bring out the individual. I think an important point there is, one of the things I learned in recreation was my job was never to tell people what they should do in recreation. My job was to find out what is it you like, what will improve the quality, and my job is to see if we can improve the quality. So it was always the individual is the only one who can decide what they enjoy doing. And that principle has always stayed strongly in all the stuff I do now. I respect you, Ashley, for who you are and what you do. There's no way I'm going to suggest to you what you should do. That's entirely your. But I do have a process that makes you think a little bit more organised way about what that might mean for you.
And so people that are sort of like getting up in the morning thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to go to work, like Sunday evening blues or Monday morning blues, that they are the people that should be picking up the phone and having a chat with you. Hey, Peter?
I think so. If it's something more than just, look, I'm having a bad week, I want to enjoy life a bit more, perhaps not. But if it is going through something, a transition, and you mentioned it might be the death of a loved one. It might be the midlife crisis when I want to stay young and I'm getting old and I'm fearing getting old. Those sorts of issues, I can bring the positive side to say, you're not, unless you really want to go that way. There's plenty waiting for you. And I'm an example of what that is. I've been retired for over 20 years now, and I left work at about the standard time. And so I can speak with authority about what it means to keep this ticking over and finding ways of finding reasons to get out of bed during the week and not just at the weekends.
No, that is marvelous. And that's why you're on this show, because I was doing a show with Sally A. Curtis a few weeks ago.
Yes,
and you popped on in the comments and I was like, I badgered you to come on my show. Because you are, like you say, in your 80s. Are you going to give the game away and tell us exactly how old you are, Peter?
I'm 84.
84. That is incredible. And here you are using all this technology, and there's 84-year-olds, and I know some.
Don't plan to give up yet either.
No, they wouldn't dare go on LinkedIn. They wouldn't dare use live streaming and stuff like that. And here you are, live streaming podcasts and helping other people. So what sort of things someone listening or watching, my sort of age, so mid-50s, my sort of age, what should they be thinking about doing over the next 10, 15, 20 years? Because that's when we're going to start thinking of retiring. What sort of things should we be planning?
I'll tell you what my process is in a nutshell. The Steve Jobs comment about you cannot join the dots looking forward, you can only join the dots looking back. And my aim is to give a structured way of looking. What have you enjoyed all your life going way back to probably your adolescent years? In fact, one of the things I would do, and I often do to give people a taster, is to say, look, let's have an hour, just for no charge, for 1 hour. I want to take you back to when you're an adolescent. And when we meet, I want you to bring a photo of yourself when you're an adolescent. And we want to talk about what it was you loved doing and why. Not so much what you did, but what happened in you while you're doing it. What were you learning? What were you finding? What was exciting you about it and why? And I delve into why they enjoyed what they enjoyed. And then I would be able to say, and I've done this on a few occasions, okay, what does that tell you about who you are now? And you can see the eyes start to widen up. Yeah, actually, I still like using this or, practicing this and doing that. That's what I used to do. It wasn't what they did, as it might have been, playing sport, but the judgment they used in sport, all these sorts of things all started to come out, and that's what makes them who they are today, and that's what they will always be.
No, that's magical. And so you're working with somebody. How you say it's 3 weeks? Is that it? And then they're free to go and they're enjoying life, or do you have some?
No, there's options from there. In fact, there are some people who say, look, you just give me part of the session. You often things in 3 stages. You can have the cheap one, which is just talk about enjoyment. The second one, which says we go further than that, and the third one, which can go on and be extended as much as you wish, looking at where you're going to do. I've got another 3 things that you want to find. You want to get clarity about what you like. You want to have confidence to apply that in the future, and you've got to have the courage to actually do it. So my workshop might end in 3 weeks if they say, look, I'm off and running, and let's face it, a number of them do. But if you really say, look, I'm still not sure about having the courage to do this, then I can option to suggest further sessions. But it's not an ongoing. I wouldn't, for instance, operate necessarily like a sports coach who stays with them all the way through. I just give them the spin-off, throw the arrow and let them go, and it's up to them. It's their decision and their choice.
It sounds an awful lot like that we get to a point in life and we sort of like stuck, lost, confused, and you're just pointing out the options that are available to us. Would that be it in a nutshell?
It is, and I'll put it in a nutshell. We age in years, but we grow in depth.
Yeah.
Depth of understanding ourselves, depth of perspective, depth of insight, mellowing. We don't worry so much. We become far more confident in saying what we think. We don't quite, and we find people want to listen to what we think, because they can say, this person's not just spouting words at me. This person's been there, and they know what they're talking about, so they want to listen. I think I've put one other in. If I've got an X factor, it's when someone describes what they enjoy, I hear more than they're saying. I've learned from years of watching people enjoy themselves. I understand a lot of them, and I'll throw it back at them eventually, and they go, "Oh, yeah, that's true."
And so, if you got any stories, you don't have to name names, but have you got any stories of people that like you say, this is the first cohort of burnout people. Have you got any stories of how someone was absolutely stuck and now they're doing amazing things, or they skydiving or something like that?
I think the funniest one was, I live in a unit, and the unit next to me was up for rent, and the real estate agent was popping in and out of the next room next door, and he got locked out by the wind, shut the door. Twice he knocked on my back door to say, "Can I come back through your unit, please?" Anyway, the second time he said, "What do you do?" I told him, and he said, "Oh, I'm just about to quit. 47 years as a real estate agent, and I haven't got a clue what I'm going to do." And he signed me up on the spot.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty dramatic, that one. But I have had people come to me. One person who was actually had to leave, ran a very successful business, had to quit the business for all sorts of reasons, and really. It's funny because he was a financial planner. Now he looks after disc golf.
Wow.
Disc golf, Australian championships in disc golf. Totally different, and loves every second of it.
Yeah,
and that all came through doing my workshop. I didn't suggest it to him. It's just it triggered a few things, and out came all this desire.
Yeah. It's like you give people permission to be themselves, isn't it?
You do. Permission's an excellent word. Allow, luxuries, and permission are all good words that you don't hear in the workforce enough. Allow yourself to blossom. Give yourself the life. Be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. All these things. It's really various interpretations of that.
Now, you said you weren't a burnt out specialist, but I'm guessing you're speaking to quite a few people who are burning out or close to it and stuff like that. What advice have you got for people feeling a little bit burnt out, Peter?
Right. I think they need to, it's energy management, not time management. I have another one of my one-liners. You can't deficit budget time, but you can deficit budget energy. So if you manage energy in your life, when you have a really enjoyable time, like we're having now, the spin-off goes on. It doesn't stop there. And the more often you can have short experiences, they don't have to be 3 weeks holiday, short experiences where you can celebrate a little thing that you enjoy, the more often you do that, the more resilient you become to dealing with mental stress. I tend to deal with the purported 4/5 of people who are mentally well, how to stay mentally well. You can ask a person, what do you do for physical fitness? And they say, oh, I do this, that, and that. What do you do to stay mentally fit? And they look blankly at you. And that's where I come in.
Yeah, and that there, I totally get that, because I go for a walk every single day. Clears my head, gets me out in nature. I get to bump into people, I have a little chat with people. You know, and it's a really, really great way to combine mental, physical, and well-being all in one go, and community.
And you know, one of the things is because you've sort of begun the second half of your life. I know you're only just over 50, I know, but you are now got some depth of understanding that what happens when you're out in nature. You're not just away from the building and all the artificial stuff. You're actually living. You're breathing. Your awe and wonder comes to the surface. You see a beautiful little flower or a magnificent tree. All those sorts of things become so much more significant. So they're stress easing.
Yeah, and so many people don't do that, do they? Because they say that they don't have anywhere nice to walk. But I think, you know, thanks to you, there's lots of parks and recreation grounds within walking distance of many people's properties.
Absolutely.
If you go onto Google Maps, you can see all the green, can't you?
Absolutely, that's right. I think it's, and I suppose what I have to say is I'm among those who are battling to keep it, because we have finite land availability, Ashley. We have all and more needs for more car parks, for buildings, for shops, for all the factories, but the land is finite. And when people look at a piece of nice green open space and say, I could develop that for millions of dollars, it's a real battle to protect it. COVID did a lot of good to help people say, you know, parks are keeping me sane. I hope they remember that, because come the next pandemic, if it's all gone, where are you going to go?
Yeah, and are you very close to the? Are you close to the coast, Peter?
Yeah, I am. Yes, I live on the coastline. Most Australians do. Although it's funny, with the cost of housing going up, a lot of people are doing what they call tree change, moving into the country where it's less pressure. But no, most of Australia lives around the coastline, and I'm not far from. I'm probably half an hour's drive from a beach.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, isn't it? I'm a 10-minute walk from the beach. So walking across the seafront every single day is just a great way to be mindful. Right, I've got one more question for you. But before that, I'm going to introduce my guest for next week, who is the lovely Emma Jane Taylor. And she's coming on to talk about her story and the project that she's doing to build awareness about her issues, etc. So looking forward to having a chat with her. So that is next week. But my final question to you, Peter, is what advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
Yes. Fascinating question, that, isn't it? What would you... I suppose when I think of looking back at myself at 16, I had no idea in the world what sort of work I wanted to do. I simply found myself following my nose into a job in government. I suppose I would say to my 16-year-old self, get a hold of life. Don't be afraid of life. There's a lot of things waiting for you. You're already showing some talents at 16 that you don't recognise are going to have a huge future for you. You love being with people. You're showing leadership skills already as a junior in sport, and be prepared to recognise the potential that they have for a future that's going to mean a lot to you.
Love it. Thank you, Peter. And Pavel's just coming in and saying it's great to hear somebody understanding the need to protect these spaces, because natural reserve is in abysmal state, which is a real shame. Thank you very much for your comments, Pavel. Peter, thank you so much for coming on this show and sharing your awe and wonder. And thanks ever so much for joining us. If anyone wants to get hold of you, how can we get hold of you?
LinkedIn, of course. Life Mentor Adelaide. It's I think Peter Nicholls as such, you'll find it. Peter Nicholls Life Mentor is a good way to find me. And I have a website which is australiaspeoplegardener.com.au, and that's all one word: Australia's People Gardener. So
Awesome.
.com.au. So both of those. In fact, the website's almost a library.
Fantastic, Peter. You're an absolute star. Thank you very much indeed. Cheerio.
I've enjoyed it immensely. Thank you very much, Ashley.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
You get out what you put in, never gonna lose.